When we talk about being a local partner, Calviva Health really cares about the community we live in. They provide more than just access to quality, low-cost healthcare.
Calviva Health supports local organizations like us, providing resources that are crucial to the community.
They're a vital partner to our organization.
Investing in the communities that we live in means everyone benefits. That's why there's Calviva Health.
Your local partner, Calviva Health. See if you qualify.
Domestic violence is one of the most pervasive issues in Fresno County, as Fresno ranks #1 among the 10 largest cities in California for domestic violence calls per capita to law enforcement. The Marjaree Mason Center is the only dedicated, comprehensive domestic violence agency in Fresno County, offering 24/7 emergency response, safe housing, and services to adults and their children fleeing for safety. Many arrive at the Marjaree Mason Center with little more than the clothes on their backs. The center provides them with the tools and resources they need to not only survive, but to thrive. Marjaree Mason Center has provided resources in Fresno County for more than 40 years because of the generous support from our community. The needs in our community are great, and we need your support so that we may continue to provide uninterrupted services for those in Fresno County. Please watch this video and consider how you can be a part of our mission to prevent and end domestic violence.
For those living with abuse, home is a dangerous place, a place without hope.
Marjaree Mason Center Hotline, how can we help you?
Marjaree Mason Center provides hope and a new beginning for those fleeing domestic violence. Your generous donations help provide 24/7 crisis support and essential services for over 8,000 adults and children each year. Thank you for your support and for sharing our vision of a community free of domestic violence.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 37th annual but very first virtual Top 10 Professional Women and Leading Business Awards. Thank you for watching today. I'm Nicole Linder, Executive Director of the Marjaree Mason Center. I am truly excited to be here for this very special annual event where we come together and honor outstanding professional leaders in our community. These individuals have served as role models and given back through service, all while making strides in their own professional roles. This event would not be possible without the generosity of our many event sponsors. Let's take a moment to appreciate them now.
Thank you to presenting sponsor Calviva Health, keynote speaker sponsor Valley Children's Healthcare, diamond sponsor Campos Brothers Farms, honoree sponsor Bank of America, honoree reception sponsor Dutch Bros Coffee, media sponsors ABC 30, The Business Journal, GV Wire, MJR Creative Group, Outfront Media, platinum sponsors Agriland Farming Company Inc., B Sweet Citrus, Community Medical Centers, Deli Delicious, Educational Employees Credit Union, Fresno State, Golden One Credit Union, Johansson Transportation Services, JPL, Moss Adams LLC, Noble Credit Union, Sante Health System, Valleywide Beverage, Zenith Insurance Company, Text to Give sponsor Fresno Economic Opportunities Commission, Gold sponsors Access Plus Capital, Central Valley Community Bank, Central Valley Community Foundation, Chevron, IQ Vision Care, Fresno Clovis Convention and Visitors Bureau, Fresno County District Attorney Lisa Smith-Camp, Fresno Unified School District, the Honorable Glenda C. Allen Hill Black Women Organized for Political Action, Sutton Hague Law Corporation, Union Bank.
Thank you again to our fantastic and generous sponsors. In addition, we are so pleased to welcome Drea Kelly as our keynote speaker. Before we celebrate our honorees and hear from Drea, let's welcome Mason family member Jessie Mason to say a few words and provide an invocation today. As Jessie joins us, I want to personally take a moment to thank and honor the entire Mason family for their passion and support to end domestic violence. This November 13th marks 42 years since the tragic death of Marjaree, and we thank the Mason family for allowing the center to keep Marjaree's legacy alive as we continue our efforts to end domestic violence and bring peace to our homes, our relationships, and to our communities.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the family of Marjaree Mason, thank you for your participation today. Marjaree was not only my sister-in-law, she was my best friend. Marjaree was a light in our family, but also in our community. When she lost her life to domestic violence, we knew we wanted her love and joy of helping others to live on. Although we miss her every day, we are so proud that her legacy is carried on through the Marjaree Mason Center to help adults and children have a future free of violence. Please join me in prayer. Father God, as we come before you, we come with thanksgiving. We thank you for this day that you've allowed us to see. We thank you for this hour where we have come together to honor women throughout this community who have given of their gifts and talents, who have served others, and continue to do so. We ask your blessings upon each of them. We also, dear God, ask that you today would bless our keynote speaker that'll be coming this afternoon, and that she will share her testimony, and that it will be a blessing to those that are in need. We thank you, dear God, for the Marjaree Mason Center as it continues to work tirelessly in serving women and children. We thank you for all that you are doing in our lives on a daily basis. We give you praise, honor, and glory. In the name of Jesus, amen. And now I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Jessie and the Mason family. My name is Greg Hund, and I am CEO of Calviva Health. Thank you for participating in today's virtual event. Calviva Health has been a proud sponsor for the last 7 years and the presenting sponsor for the 3rd year. I had the privilege for the 2nd time to be one of the judges for the top 10 honorees. I shared the judging responsibilities with Glenda Allen Hill, Nene Caceres, Kathy ID, and Larry Salinas. The talent, experience, and commitment of each of these candidates was so extraordinary and inspiring that the selection process was not easy. Thank you, judges, for joining me in this challenging effort. Calviva Health will remain committed to this event, as we know that other organizations like Marjaree Mason Center and the countless others in our communities provide vital resources to the 366,000 members that Calviva serves in Fresno, Madera, and Kings County. Calviva Health is a local organization that take our investment in community organizations very seriously. It is crucial that we support local organizations like Marjaree Mason Center that are critical to the people of our value. We'd also like to congratulate each of the top honorees. Again, we're pleased to be part of the education and advocacy to end domestic violence. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Graciela Moreno from ABC 30. It is my pleasure to be back as the MC and moderator for the Top 10 event. Before I introduce the Top 10 honorees for 2020, we would like to acknowledge and thank some very important people. First, we want to welcome all of the Top 10 alumni who are joining us virtually today. Well, each of these honorees were nominated by a community member. As Greg mentioned, a committee of judges reviewed and scored each application based on set criteria, and a new class of top 10 professional women and a leading business is confirmed. Now, this event would not be possible without the tireless efforts of our top 10 committee and our Marjaree Mason Center board members. Their names are listed in your virtual program. Thanks to each and every one of you. Now the time has come for what we've all been waiting for. I will introduce the honorees for 2020. Well, starting in alphabetical order, our first honoree is Janine Campos-Grech. For Janine Campos-Grech, family is everything. Growing up in rural Carruthers, her family was very close-knit. Hard work and dedication was instilled from a young age. Janine's parents included her and her two brothers in the family business. Trying something new helped her learn and foster success, and the only failure in the Campos household was not trying. Janine began her professional career working for a commodities trading firm in the Bay Area. In 1997, she was accepted into the California Agricultural Leadership Program. Her natural proclivity toward education and travel led her to Washington, D.C., to the House Committee on Natural Resources, Subcommittee on Water and Power. Now, from there, she moved on to be the communications director for Representative Ken Calvert. She eventually returned to the Valley, where her knowledge and talents have been fully utilized. Currently, as partner, Janine oversees sales, marketing, and regulatory affairs for Campos Brothers Farms. Now, besides her family and business, another of Janine's passions is to give back. Todd Centropak, president and CEO of Valley Children's Healthcare, says that Janine, her desire to learn is unmatched. Her leadership is an important force for our organization, and her heart for the work and for the health of our Valley's kids is personal, deep, and drives all that she does. Janine's family and her children are her motivation. I want to set the same example for my kids that my parents gave to me. Ladies and gentlemen, Janine Campos-Grech.
I think that I've always been driven with a sense of purpose for service. I've always been into volunteering. I've always been into being really active in the community and promoting really great causes within. I was raised that way, and I find myself very involved in lending my time and sort of my background into organizations such as Valley Children's Hospital. That for me has been such a pleasure, truly an honor to serve on that board. Inspiration comes in many forms, and my primary inspiration when I wake up every day, first is to thank God for being able to wake up every day, but then it's my kids. I mean, it is truly, my daughters and sons serve as an inspiration to me to be better. You know, you always want to be a better parent. You want to be a better example. I always feel like there's this strive to just every day we can improve upon little things that ultimately end up being bigger things for them at the end. And so they really sort of serve as my inspiration to be a better human.
Next, we have Joyce Fields Keene. A child of Depression-era born parents who left Florida for California with their belongings packed in a trailer, Joyce realized that she had no choice but to attend college as her mother would have it no other way. Joyce often says that her mother was her biggest fan, her hardest critic, and her confidant, and also her most important person in her life. Since she graduated, Joyce has demonstrated that she is highly skilled at leading, organizing, recruiting, and mentoring in her position as CEO of the Central California Faculty Medical Group. I aspire to reach the level of professionalism that Joyce exhibits every day, says James Davis, MD, professor of clinical surgery at UCSF, and a member of the Marjaree Mason Center Men's Leadership Council. Now, CCFMG began with 38 physicians. Today, it's a multi-specialty medical group with more than 350 physicians and advanced practitioners. The group supports 8 residency programs and 18 fellowship programs through UCSF. We make medical education happen, she says of CCFMG. Teaching is the glue in medicine, and our group loves developing young doctors. Ladies and gentlemen, Joyce Fields Keene.
The physicians here are the teachers for the UCSF Fresno Medical Education Program, so we're training the next generation of physicians. And that's residencies. We've got 8 residencies and another 13 fellowships. That's how much we've grown. And really in today's world with the pandemic, thank God we've got fellowship training in pulmonary critical care and infectious disease, because our physicians are the only hospital in the valley that can do the trials that help save patients' lives. It really gives me great satisfaction, and I know that I'm a part of a bigger picture of an important mission. And the research that's tied with the program is also amazing. We have an oncologist that specializes in hem-oncology, and she's working on a treatment for where you can't operate on a tumor in a body and how you start to build up their own immunizations, and then that starts fighting it. And she's had such great outcomes that is actually put on the market a couple of years ago. So really those types of contributions what motivates me and gets me up every morning to really contribute to that.
Our next honoree is Dr. Lupe Jaime Maila. Now, while most children and families in Fresno County may not know her personally, one of their biggest advocates and cheerleaders is Lupe Jaime Maila. Whether advocating for high-quality childcare, supporting family stabilization, or navigating the ever-changing and specialized needs of early childcare and education, she always finds innovative ways to provide support. Team member Marianne Cusator shares, anyone who spends any amount of time with her quickly comes to realize that Lupe views each moment as an opportunity to connect and learn. In her day job, Lupe spearheaded the opening of the Lighthouse for Children Child Development Center, a state-of-the-art child care center for children ages 6 weeks to 5 years. I am doing my dream job, and I have the best, most supportive boss in the world in Superintendent Jim Jovino. He trusts us and gives us the autonomy to do our jobs. Realizing nearly 43,000 of Fresno County's 189,837 students are second language learners, Lupe co-founded the CSUF Central Valley Bilingual Dual Language Consortium, gathered educators, and developed a master's degree in multilingual, multicultural education. Now, in regards to Fresno County's various communities, she says a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't make sense. Recently completing a doctorate in educational leadership, Lupe is adjunct faculty at Fresno State and serves on multiple boards and commissions in Fresno County. In 2016, California Governor Brown appointed Lupe to the California Children and Families Commission, First Five California. Now, the Obama administration also invited her to share her expertise with the White House Regional Summit and dual language learners. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lupe Jaime Maila.
I see my work as not as work. I see it as my life mission. I have the privilege to be able to work with families and their children, as well as the early care and education workforce. That's a privilege. That's not something that's something that as a trusted messenger, I have to make sure that I continue to earn that every day. I'm also a appointee for Governor Newsom on his Early Childhood Policy Council team. This workforce group, or commission group in a sense, focuses on developing a master plan that will lead investments in the future for early care and education. So I'm quite honored to be able to serve in that commission, represent the Central Valley. We can't do this work alone. I am here because I am part of the many women and individuals in my life that believed in me and saw me as someone that they wanted to invest time, energy, and wisdom. And so if you surround yourself by a village, just like I happen to have, it really will contribute to great success. And I'm a testimony of that.
Next, we have Lisa Nichols. Now, she is simply everywhere I look in our community that needs a champion. Comments colleague and nominator, Dr. Michelle Cantwell-Kofer. CPS, Community Medical Centers NICU, Southwest Fresno Educational Complexes, community boards, Lisa steps up and lives her personal purpose with such gravitas that she inspires me regularly. Moving from Daly City to Fresno at the age of 4, Lisa has overcome many obstacles. Believing that her struggles made her stronger, Lisa has risen above childhood domestic violence, poverty, speech and learning disabilities. Lisa attributes her educational accomplishment and passion for community involvement to her grandmother, Ethel Luke, who raised her to be the woman that she is today and taught her to give back. I wish she could be here to see it, she says. Lisa's first role in FUSD was to implement after-school programs for at-risk youth, and in 2014, Lisa was part of the team to open Gaston Middle School. Now today, Lisa is a vice principal on special assignment in Goal 2 school leadership. She plays a critical role in creating a culture in which the needs of students, families, teachers, and the community are met through building positive connections. I am all about community collaboration, Lisa acknowledges. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lisa Nichols.
Sometimes students look at us and they think that adult hasn't gone through some of the same things that I've gone through. And so it's nothing for me to share my story with students and say, I know, I can relate, I've been there. This is where I came from. I struggled in school, but I had all these supports in place. And so for me, it's sharing that story and then encouraging them about the resources that they can tap into that's going to make them successful. You know, my grandmother gave me several advice as I was growing up, and one of the biggest advice that she gave me was to make sure you connect with as many people as you could, because she always shared that along your journey, you're going to meet individuals along the way, and they may be there for just a short time, or they may be there, you know, throughout your entire journey, but God places them in your life for a reason, because they're there just to kind of like sprinkle you with that needed love and care in order to get to the next step in your journey. And so for young folks, I'm always talking with them about the importance of just because when you turn 18 doesn't mean you don't need anybody. You're going to always need someone along the way that kind of just pushes you to that next step in your journey. There's others that see something in you that you may not see at the time. And so for those young ladies, always just take advantage of any opportunities that open. Like, you know, doors may close, but there will always be another door that opens up. And so don't be afraid to walk through that door. It is scary, but you have people along the way to help you.
Our next honoree is Irma Olguin Jr. As a child, Irma Olguin Jr.'s vision for her future did not include college, let alone a profession in the technology industry. However, at the age of 15, she and other classmates at Carruthers High School were invited to take the PSAT. Irma didn't know what the PSAT was, but it would turn out to be the single most important test of her life. Her high PSAT score, paired with her strong grades, earned Irma a full-ride scholarship to the University of Toledo. In 2013, Irma and business partner Jake Soberall began a company focused on strengthening Fresno's technology industry and leveraging it as an economic driver. Bitwise Industries provides individuals the skills to excel in technology while building community, innovation, and inclusion. Today, Irma oversees the company's operations teams, GeekWise Academy, and Shift 3 Technologies. Now, Irma dominates an industry that is not traditional to women, LGBTQ+, or people of color, by creating an inclusive environment that she couldn't find elsewhere in Fresno. With diversity and inclusion at its heart, Bitwise made Fresno one of the fastest growing tech centers in the United States, while proudly comprised of over 50% minority, over 50% female, and over 20% first-generation immigrants. Beth Milley, president of Bitwise Industries, reflects, Irma's ability to empathize, listen, give people her time and her energy, and truly care about them are some of her greatest accomplishments. Ladies and gentlemen, Irma Olguin Jr.
My family is a family of farm laborers and was not college bound. And college materials started showing up at my home. And one day there was a scholarship offer in that pile of mail. And we spent the whole summer recycling cans and bottles until we had a pile of change large enough to buy a Greyhound bus ticket. And that Greyhound bus took me 2,500 miles from Fresno, California to Toledo, Ohio, where I would arrive at orientation to claim that scholarship. There was a moment in my very first job as a computer engineer when I was working late with my colleagues and I was the only female in the room, the only brown person, the only person of the LGBTQ community as well. And we're hanging out, wonderful folks that I was working with, we're hanging out, we're working late, we're gonna order a pizza. And when my colleague comes to collect my $20 to go pay the guy who's delivering, and he yells back from the door, "How much tip do you want to leave?" And I yell back to him, "Tell him to keep the change." And it was one of those moments where your body goes still and that cold washes over and you realize that your life is not what it was before. Never ever in my life had I not counted the change. I had never not calculated whether or not I needed $2 for an extra gallon of gas, or whether or not that was going to be the difference between having just hot dogs or hot dogs and buns, right? And so it was one of those, and I realized then I needed to come home. I needed to bring what Ohio had taught me back to California and give that feeling as much as possible to other people who grew up like I did. And that eventually became Bitwise Industries. There's a sense of like, how many times can we create a moment where somebody gets to say, keep the change?
Next, we have Tressa Overstreet. I got into MIT. Mrs. Overstreet is so proud of me, cheered a student to teachers walking across the Design Science Middle College High School campus. Tressa Overstreet is more than a principal to students. She is a mentor and in many cases a parent, a role Tressa fully embraces as she attributes school as her escape during childhood. Growing up, Tressa recalls changing schools up to 3 times per year. The trauma of domestic violence in the home propelled her into the realities of adulthood at a young age. In the 1970s, you just kept going. You moved in the middle of the night. Tressa left home when she was 17 and secured her first teaching job at age 21. The first time I looked at a student who was filthy and covered with lice, I understood that education saved my life. Tressa is in the business of changing the trajectory of her students, describing Design Science as a small school that does big things. More than 90% of the school's nearly 300 students live in poverty and are the first in their families to pursue higher education. Regardless of their background, more than 25% of her students graduate with both an associate degree and a high school diploma, while 100% of her students graduate and transition to 4-year universities, including Yale, Harvard, Stanford, and more. Tressa Overstreet is driven to help others be the very best that they can be. While some may say that we are products of our upbringing, Tressa makes it her mission to ensure that students are not prisoners of their past. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tressa Overstreet.
Of our graduating students, about 86% are first in their families to go to college. Many are first in their families to graduate from high school. This last year, 90% earned their AA degree and their high school diploma at the same time. 100% are admitted to 4-year universities. This last year, we had 4 admitted to Stanford, all first in their families to go to college. They work, they take care of siblings, they take city buses to get here. Some of them get on a bus while it's still dark outside. They go home when it's dark, and they don't complain. They keep on going every day because there's a hope that it's going to get better, and there's a hope in education that education is going to lead them to economic prosperity. It's going to disrupt that cycle of poverty that they've been surviving in. So they know they're going to move from surviving to thriving. They laugh every day, we cry every day, but they keep moving forward. And they are our hope. And when one student goes to college, I see siblings start coming up. And they help each other. They help their cousins at other schools. They help other family members. They're tutoring. They know the power. They've felt the power of education, how it's going to change them.
Our next honoree is Aileen Rizzo. I always wanted to be a teacher. Her love of education stemmed from her father's upbringing in Mexico. He revered learning and saw education as a gift. As a student, Aileen was quiet and would never speak or raise her hand. That changed when a middle school math teacher began to call on her in class. I didn't know I could do that. My confidence was raised. It was that experience that led to Aileen's love of math. This love of mathematics led Aileen to earn a bachelor's degree in secondary mathematics education and then a master's in mathematics education. She completed a second master's degree in educational technology and is currently completing a PhD in curriculum in instruction from Texas Tech University with an emphasis in STEM education. Esmeralda Soria, Fresno City Council member, District 1, says of Aileen, she has dedicated her life to exploring engagement methods for students in mathematics and raising awareness about diversity in education. Aileen recalls the most pivotal moment in her career as the decision to pursue an equal pay for equal work lawsuit that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. In the end, her tenacity and perseverance led to a change in California law. The journey has changed me and given me a clearer picture of equality. While she says it is not a path that she would have chosen, she believes it changed her for the better. Ladies and gentlemen, Aileen Rizzo.
It was a lunch meeting, and I learned that a newly hired male was going to be paid $13,000 more than me. And I thought, well, this must be a mistake. So when I went and started this investigation, which would later become an 8-year lawsuit, I saw for the first time the importance of an educator being an advocate. Now, we're naturally, I think, advocates for our children, for our students in our classroom, but we don't do that enough for ourselves sometimes. So as hard as it was, I embraced that role of suing my employer because, like John Lewis said, good trouble has to happen when there's injustice. I didn't know those words yet at that time, but what I did know is that I had 3 daughters at home. The decisions I make in my employment, in the workplace, will affect what they have to put up with later on. It'd be easy for me to be livid if something happened to my daughters. But when our mind shifts and we realize that when we stand up for ourselves, we stand up for others as well. And when I stood on stage in 2015 and watched the governor sign the Fair Pay Act, I was holding my 9-month-old daughter. And I realized that I had found a voice that was different than the voice of a teacher. I had found a voice that was saying, if there's injustice and you still feel like you're alone in it, that one person can make a difference.
Our next Top 10 honoree is Tina Rodriguez. As a child, Tina Rodriguez found the courage to call 911 when her mother was being hurt. She accompanied her mom to the Marjaree Mason Center, and the healing began for both. That was a big turning point in my life, says Rodriguez, who is Director of Victim Services for the Community Action Partnership of Madera County and Board President of the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault. My goals were different than they are now. I could attend school without breaks, and Marjaree Mason Center connected me to a case manager that I still speak to now. On a daily basis, Tina encounters people who are broken, believing they are trapped in an endless cycle. One of her favorite things is to have a new survivor hear from someone who is further along in their process of healing. They start to feel more comfortable and begin to open up. They see that they aren't alone and there's not a reason to be ashamed. You see their self-confidence and empowerment grow. The most recent challenge Tina has seen in advocating for survivors is securing funds for prevention. We must have prevention in our workload. Now, as president of the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault, she collaborates with directors in California to advocate for budget dollars in Sacramento. Advocacy is very demanding and has to be precisely planned. Her advocacy efforts have paid off with $5 million committed to prevention over the past 2 years. It's a good start. Ladies and gentlemen, Tina Rodriguez.
I grew up witnessing domestic violence. I grew up in a very abusive home, and I discovered the existence of battered women's shelters with my mother. And during that time, I specifically connected with the Marjaree Mason Center, and I found it to be very safe and inviting, and I volunteered. I bonded really with the services, and most importantly, the eagerness to want to be safe. And the shelter meant safety to me. For the young women coming up in their careers, I would say, know this much: you are not alone. You will never be alone. I hope to see and want to see you in a position where you are standing for what you believe in instead of against what you don't want. I hope to see that shift there. It is very important because it'll allow more opportunity for growth in a healthy way, not in such a conflictive way. And that's what I hope to see.
Up next, we have Gurdeep Sihoda Abair. Empathy, focusing on solutions, and professionalism have made Gurdeep Abair a community college student's best friend. Raised in rural Selma, her family instilled the importance of education, hard work, and a career other than farm labor. At Fresno City College, her passion for helping others took flight. 32 years later, she is the Dean of Student Services at Clovis Community College. Now, the large number of first-generation college graduates at Clovis Community is evidence of her commitment to students. Deborah Aikida, retired president of Clovis Community College and current trustee for State Center Community College, notes, Gurdeep has demonstrated the ability to take the initiative and to do whatever needs to be done to assist students. It's obvious that she cares about what happens to students and does her best to ensure their success. A willingness to tackle new challenges has lifted students and our community. One example, Gurdeep's decision to take on fundraising as executive director of the State Center Community College Foundation. In that role, she secured funds for the Center for Fine and Performing Arts at Reedley College and restoration of FCC's old administration building, in addition to millions of dollars for student scholarships. I didn't know that fundraising was in me, she says, but restoring that building, which was only possible with a giving community, was another way of saying to students, we believe in you. Keep pushing. Ladies and gentlemen, Gurdeep Sihoda Abair.
There are so many challenges that our students face. And I think that is not just at the community college. I think it's being a student, period. You are put into a location which may not be very familiar early on to you, and you're relying on others to actually help you in this growth process. So sometimes students come to me and there may have not been someone who was as positive or as supportive. So now we have to shift and find another way to help that student through. They have a support system, they have people they can go to and talk to, plus they're going to meet fellow students that they can now almost rely on or at least share experiences. So that engagement is what kind of, I think, sets a foundation for them to be able to say, okay, I can do this on my own. However, if I run into a situation where I can't, I've got someone I can rely on. I'm like, I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for my community college. I really don't. Fresno City College set that foundation for me, and I think that's why I actually ended up in education, and specifically I stayed in the community college system because I saw firsthand and experienced firsthand the impact that it would have.
Our final professional woman honoree is Dorothy Thomas. As the go-to banker for budding entrepreneurs and small businesses, Dorothy Thomas is responsible for more than $600 million in small business administration funded projects, with 8,000 jobs created or retained in the Central Valley over the past 30 years. Frank C. Gallegos, executive director of the CenCal Business Group, says these numbers are unmatched by any other banker, male or female, in the Central Valley. Born and raised in Flint, Michigan, Dorothy and her husband moved to Fresno in 1982 and put down deep roots in our community. Today, she is Senior Vice President at Central Valley Community Bank and the SBA Department Manager. This trailblazer describes the frustrations of trying to help small businesses secure loans as being pivotal in her career. Businesses couldn't find banks that would help them. I knew that if I got back on the front line of banking, I could help a lot of businesses. Her leadership style allows everyone to voice their opinions, knowledge, and observations as a true team. Sometimes we don't get what we want, but you know that you've been heard. Voices are important, she says. Dorothy is blunt when assessing the miles that Fresno must go to provide people of color and women the resources that they need to realize economic prosperity. I think there's a lot of work to be done. We have some of the highest poverty in the country. It's worse than some coal mining towns in West Virginia. We need more minorities in leadership positions where they can make a difference. Ladies and gentlemen, Dorothy Thomas.
I love what I do. I truly, truly love what I do because I look at over the years how many businesses that we've actually helped. And, you see their families growing. And, even the guy that owns a Subway, I have one that I helped him get his first Subway sandwich shop, and he's got 14 now. He calls me at Christmas still. He thanks me, and he tells me, his sons are in college because of what we've done for him. And not just me, but the whole team that's working together to support this. That's what makes me happy, is because I know we're making a difference in lives. Currently, I'm on several boards, 3 of them, and usually they're centered around economic justice and access to capital. I'm the chair of Access Plus Capital, which is a division of EOC. We have a problem with economic inequality in our community, and if we can help with that and level the playing field, the EOC board of Access Plus Capital, they make loans as small as $5,000 to up to several $100,000. They're small amounts, but the impact can be huge and life-altering for these small business owners. And that's my passion. I want to continue to do that and make sure that we spread the wealth, not in terms of social justice, but in terms of giving people the opportunity to fulfill their dreams.
And lastly, the leading business awardee, Moss Adams LLP, with Chris Morse and Ashley Jacobson accepting. To foster an inclusive and diverse culture where everyone feels like they belong, the Moss Adams mission guides bringing together professionals to positively impact both clients and colleagues. A key contributor to their mission are business resource groups to create community, camaraderie, and connections by encouraging an inclusive culture, including Asian, Black, Latinx, Pride, veterans, racial equity, and Forum W for women groups. Moss Adams is one of the largest firms in the U.S., providing accounting, tax, and consulting services to public and private middle market enterprises. The firm believes in giving back to the communities where their employees live and work. Our staff knows if they're going to be a part of Moss Adams, this is part of their commitment, comments Fresno partner in charge, Chris Morse. Historically, they have held a golf tournament to benefit Central California Food Bank. In addition, Moss Adams is a founding partner of Fresno State's March Matchup campaign to benefit the Student Covered program with a matching fund contribution to inspire other donations. Moss Adams leads the industry in developing and advancing women. Women become partners and serve on management committees at smaller rates than men in the accounting industry. As a result, Moss Adams identified metrics and processes to assist monitoring and responding to the challenge. Now, one program is flexible work schedules. Ashley Jacobson, senior manager at the Fresno office, benefits from such programs. As a mother of 3 children and under the age of 10, I work an 80% schedule. I'm able to reduce the quantity of clients that I serve while still serving each with 100% focus. Ladies and gentlemen, Moss Adams LLP.
I think the reason I'm most proud to work at Moss Adams is really the people. For me, I think everyone has a passion, so we have, Aaron Goldfarb, one of our partners, started Dress for Success, a nonprofit here in Fresno. We've got people sitting on different boards. And so that really just it inspires, right? So it's like you see people doing great things. And so it's so much more than, filing a tax return or auditing a financial statement. It's really engaging with other like-minded individuals and, being inspired not only in our work, but also in our lives outside of work and building up that full life resume.
Moss Adams is a huge supporter of inclusion and diversity. We've been doing it for 15 plus years. We've been doing it before it was cool to do, which is one thing I'm very proud of being part of that it's those that are underrepresented is they all have unique challenges to climb the ladder. So it's to identify what those challenges are and then put an action plan in place to minimize those challenges. Ultimately, the person still has to step up and do what they need to do to advance in their career, but we're going to remove as many obstacles as possible to do that. So really, it's two things. It's really just take care of our people and take care of our communities. And that's what separates us from, in my opinion, any other firm or in any industry. And this could be applied to any other type of industry, not just accounting.
Wow, that is quite an accomplished group of honorees. Congratulations again to each and every one of you as a top 10 professional and leading business. Special thanks to Mike Rolfe and the team at MJR Creative Group and Matt Crum of Motion Maker Studios for producing the videos of each honoree, as well as the various media collateral. A very special thanks to Valley Children's Healthcare for sponsoring Drea Kelly, our keynote speaker today. As we prepare to hear from Drea, I'd first like to introduce Lynn Ashbeck, Top 10 alumna, Clovis City Council member, and Senior Vice President of Community Engagement and Population Wellness for Valley Children's Healthcare.
Thank you, Graciela. Again this year, Valley Children's Healthcare is honored to be a part of this really important event in our community, virtual or otherwise, celebrating the many contributions of all of the top 10 award recipients and honoring the Mason family for sharing Marjaree with us for so many years. So to the Mason family, please know that you inspire all of us to work every day to eliminate domestic violence from our community. And for that, we are grateful. Valley Children shares with Marjaree Mason Center an unwavering commitment to create a safe place for families and places where kids can be kids, something that domestic violence takes away from so many of our children. Drea Kelly is a well-known dancer, choreographer, entrepreneur, actress, motivational speaker, and reality TV star. Though she welcomed family life, it was tainted with emotional, sexual, physical, and financial abuse. In a defining moment of courage, she left her abuser, but remained silent about the abuse for several years. Since finding her voice, she has spent years fighting and advocating for domestic violence awareness. Drea transformed her personal experience of marital abuse and heartache into a relentless crusade of being a voice for the voiceless, often saying, "It saves lives." Not allowing the power and fame of her abuser to stop her or stand in her way, Drea proudly promotes domestic violence awareness and shares her testimony through her advocacy and motivational speaking. Domestic violence is not an easy subject to discuss, to hear about, or to think about, and we want you to know that there is help available. If by listening today, you see yourself or a friend or a family member in Drea's story, there is support available in Fresno and nationally. Please reach out. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Drea Kelly.
Event today, which celebrates outstanding women in our community. We are thrilled that you're joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and giving me yet another platform to share my story of triumph and victory.
Absolutely. Now, I know that in that introduction, we of course mentioned the fact that you were married to a very high-profile R&B singer, R. Kelly. Yet, despite him being so high-profile, so famous, we know so little about your relationship, about that time when you were married up until recently. And that was, as you've said before, that was part of the abuse. Tell us about that relationship.
Yeah, well, it started out as me being his choreographer and principal dancer. And for many years, you know, you never say never. I was like, I will never, ever, 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 ever date him. And he tried to court me for about 2 years before we actually ended up in a relationship. It was very low key. A lot of people did not know that he was married when I came forward. A lot of people were like, well, wait a minute, when was he married? Where did this wife come from? And what was so eerie about that is that the isolation, which is a part of the abuse, was covered in protection. the reason why I didn't let people know about you and that we were married is to protect you from the fans and from the paparazzi and from people following you at the grocery store. And it was a double-edged sword because people didn't know about me. It was easier to go to the grocery store and to take my children to the park. But then the hindsight now looking back on it was no, actually it was to keep me isolated so that no one would know about the abuse, and also that I felt so distant and separated from the world that I didn't even feel empowered to speak out about it, because in my mind and in the rest of the world, I didn't even exist.
So how was it? How were you able to identify what was really happening? When did that flag, or when did that light come on that you said, I'm not getting to speak to anyone, I'm not getting to share time with family, this isn't normal? When did that happen for you?
Actually, it was when my daughter, she was about 6 years old, and we were in Miami at Parrot Jungle Island. And I will never forget it. We were staying at the Grand Wyndham Bay Hotel. I will never forget it. And she was actually sitting at the foot of the bed, and we were looking at photos, and he was verbally abusive in front of her. And that had been the first time he'd ever done that. And what was I guess that light bulb moment for me was when my daughter said, well, Daddy, why are you being mean to my mom? Why are you talking to her that way? And he turned to her and said, she knows what the F she did. In that moment, a light bulb went off for me. And I thought, if I stay, I am signing her name on a contract that she never read. If I stay and she ends up with an abusive man like this, and I tell her to leave, she's going to say, Mom, you were a hypocrite. You stayed with my dad all those years. And the final thing that came into my mind was, Drea, what if she becomes a statistic? What if she doesn't leave? What if she ends up in a casket? What if that's her way out? So for me in that moment, spiritually, I felt like something broke and I left. But I would say physically, the leaving actually did not happen until I tried to commit suicide.
Wow. We do want to hear about that. But tell me, let's go back a little bit. So aside from the isolation, what else was going on in the home?
Aside from the isolation, there was the physical abuse, the mental abuse, the financial abuse. People don't think that financial and economic abuse is real, and it's very, very real. My name was not on any of our bank accounts. So it wasn't like, oh, if I decided to leave, I could just go to the bank and grab money and start my life all over. I was actually getting what was called an allowance from him. He had a power of attorney at that time, Daryl McDavid, which was his accountant. He had more access to our accounts. He could write checks, cash checks, take money out, put money in, and I didn't have any of that available to me. Going through that, I would say the sexual abuse was probably the worst. And I say it's the worst form of abuse because it's something that chips away you as a woman, and it makes it very difficult for you to be in intimate situations, because again, a lot of people don't realize that spousal rape, spousal abuse, sexual abuse is very real. That just because the person is your boyfriend or fiance or whomever, an intimate partner in that way, they don't have the right to force you or coerce you into sexual acts against your will. And that was prevalent in my marriage. Just all forms of it. It was all forms of abuse.
And you mentioned that this isolation, does this mean that you stayed as long as you did because of all the things that you mentioned, but also because had you lost contact with friends, with family, did you feel like you couldn't reach out to them, or were you afraid to reach out to them?
It was both. I was afraid to reach out. And I think what people don't understand about abuse, your abuser is either physically, mentally, emotionally, or sexually abused on the days that you felt like you did things right. So imagine what that abuse is like on the days that you did things wrong, or you quote unquote broke his rules. For me, there was punishment. Much like the stories that everyone has heard, my family too, they went to the Chicago Tribune trying to find me. Mary Mitchell actually ran a story in our local newspaper, how my parents, my grandparents, they were going to the press. They couldn't get in contact with me. He was changing my cell phone numbers. And much like all the other stories that have been heard, he has control over every aspect of your life, from when you can eat, where you can go, going to the restroom, who you could talk to, who your friends are. It was total isolation, total control, very scary, because again, I'm thinking in my mind, well, maybe my parents don't want anything to do with me at this point because I have been isolated for so long. Maybe their hearts are broken and they just feel like, okay, she doesn't have time for us anymore. She's famous now. She's rich now. She doesn't have time for us. And I'm thinking the complete opposite because I'm being brainwashed by him to believe, oh, well, your family's jealous of the life that you have. And that's why they're not reaching out to you. And even if they do reach out to you, it's going to be for money. People are going to come to you because they want things and they want the life that you have. So when you're not hearing from your family on my end and my family's end, those both seem to ring true that A, okay, maybe they don't want to deal with me, and B, my family feeling, well, maybe she doesn't want to deal with us.
So at least you said your daughter was 6 years old when that light bulb went off, right? When you said that he was verbally abusive to you in front of the children. So it took 6 years for that light bulb to go off and for you to say, now I have to do something. So how long between that moment and the moment where you finally decided, I'm leaving, and how did that happen?
Actually, but that incident with my daughter and the moment that I left when I got back to Chicago, that was almost a 48-hour span. I remember after that incident going back to my room and crawling up. We were staying in a penthouse suite and there was a balcony, and I actually crawled out onto the top railing of it. I had my hand on the wall and my foot on the other, but God allowed me to see what was coming. I looked down, I saw my body laying in blood. I saw the housekeeper come out and she was pointing up and she was saying, she jumped from there, from there. There was an ambulance. But I think the thing that really kept me from jumping and saving my life was hearing my children in the background. And they were saying, Mama, why did she jump? Why did she leave us? And I remember jumping down and my heart is racing and I'm praying and I asked God, I said, you have to tell me now, not tomorrow, not in 2 days, not in 5 days. I need to know now if I'm supposed to be here. Am I supposed to stay? What am I supposed to do? And God said, grab your laptop. At this point, I'm furious because I'm thinking, God, that is not what I'm asking you. I don't care what's on my laptop. He said, grab your laptop. I grabbed my laptop. He says, put in domestic violence. Now, at this point, I'm thinking, but I'm not that girl. Domestic violence, that I've never had a scene out of What's Love Got to Do with it. I've never been running down the street in my face covered in blood or my teeth missing. I'm just not that girl. I went on domestic violence awareness, went to the page, the hotline. I keep scrolling. He says, keep scrolling. I scroll down to the bottom and there's a questionnaire that they have you answer about abuse. Of the 17 things on the questionnaire, 15 he had already done to me. The only thing that he didn't do at that point was abuse my children or kill a pet. Everything else he had done. And it felt like a ton of bricks fell on me because it was the realization of you're being abused.
Wow.
I'm really a woman who's being abused.
So who was your first call? Did you call family? Who was there for you when you finally decided to run and to leave? And is that what you did? Was it a middle of the night sort of thing where you just took off?
Actually, it was not, because we were in Florida, in Miami at that time, and he was doing MTV Awards, so I could not leave. I actually had to get on a tour bus with him and ride all the way back to Chicago. But what I did in between time, I called my dad and I let him know what was happening. And I took the advice of the young lady that I say, this is my angel on earth. And if I ever have the chance to find her or meet her, I want to hug her and just tell her how much I love and appreciate her. She gave me the best advice. She said, don't change anything that you're doing. If you get up every morning and make him coffee the next day. If you say yes, continue to say yes. Have your plan. You have to have your exit plan. And that's what I executed, letting my dad know what was going on, making sure I had the kids' birth certificates and social security numbers and medication in line, having a meeting point with my dad when I decided to leave. So I made sure all of that was in place. I had to ride again from Florida back to Chicago with him. And it was really eerie on that ride back because he said to me, you know what, Drea, you don't love me anymore. You changed. And I just kept remembering what she said in the back of my mind. So I was like, no, I do. I love you. And I'm thinking, just play sick for this entire ride until you get home. And when I made it back to Chicago, that's when I escaped.
Wow. So tell us, I know that you said that it was all levels of abuse and it was really bad and the sexual abuse was particularly bad. And I know that in the past I've heard you speak about this. This is not something you grew up watching, right? Your parents had a very loving home. And so that was not something that maybe you had seen at home. So was it because you didn't know what to expect coming into a relationship that was abusive because you hadn't seen it before, or was it something else?
Actually, it was not my parents the first time that I was exposed to abuse. It was my grandparents. My grandfather, who was also a Baptist preacher, was the first man that I ever saw beat a woman. And I was 6 years old. And I just think how the duality of life and the irony of life, when you look back on things at 6 years old, I remember sitting on my grandparents' stairs. And I used to come down as a little girl, like, do. I would slide down their stairs on my bottom as a little girl. But for some particular reason on this day, something in my little mind said, creep down today. And as I crept down to the bottom of the stairs, I kept hearing this. And I'm like, what is that noise? I'd never heard it in my grandparents' house before. I get to the bottom of the stairs. It's actually my grandfather choking my grandmother, banging her head against the glass pane in the door. And I just remember in that moment wanting to disappear. And the numbers, for some reason, the dancer in me, I don't know what it was. It was something about that 1, 2, 3, 4. My mind would go 5, 6, 7, 8, and it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I just said, if I just keep counting, I can disappear. I can end up in a dance studio and I can take my grandmother with me. But unfortunately, that did not happen. My grandmother passed away as a victim. I feel like she never got her voice. She never made that transition from victim to survivor. But the crazy thing about it, it's not so much what my grandfather did that changed me. It's what my grandmother didn't do that changed me. Because at that point, I'd already accepted he's a monster. He is who he is. Like Sundays, you're in the pulpit, you're an archangel. But Monday through Saturday, you're hell on wheels. So I accepted that about him. It was the next day my grandmother got up, made breakfast for my grandfather like nothing ever happened. And I remember her making breakfast for him. I came downstairs and he's sitting at the head of the table with his Bible, praying over his food. And I just remember my grandmother standing in solidarity with this man. He said, amen, after he prayed over his food. And I remember her turning around saying, amen, Rev. And I just thought, wow, so we're just going to act like yesterday just never happened. So for me, the exposure, and I say that we're all trees, we're branch, leaf, fruit, root. What was at the root of my tree was seeing my grandfather being abusive. What is the fruit of my tree is I ended up in an abusive relationship. So no, for me, it was not abnormal. That's what I saw as a little girl. And of course, you think the man of the cloth, a preacher, if he does it, certainly a man in the world does.
So did that moment flash through your head the day when you were at the park with your daughter and R. Kelly was verbally abusive? Did that moment suddenly say, I can't allow her to see this as normal?
Yes. When she was sitting, and that's like my life, it's a mirror. I remember looking at her thinking, this is her to do. This, when I make this decision, that's her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, thinking, here she is sitting at the foot of this bed and this man is being verbally abusive. And I know that's step one, because then she's going to start grabbing me in front of her, pushing me in front of her, shoving me in front of her, eventually being physically abusive in front of her. So that was, and we were around the same age. And I thought, I'm done. I'm done. It will not go on another day. It will not happen for another generation. And it wasn't anything physical. Again, it wasn't a scene out of What's Love Got to Do with It. It was the fact that I knew at that point what that change did for me, seeing my grandmother and my grandfather. And again, it would have been for my daughter getting up the next day, pretending to be a happy family like nothing ever happened. I would have been my grandmother to her.
And again, we talked about how private that was, how nobody in your family, your group of friends, nobody knew that this was happening in this relationship. So why did you, after leaving him, several years go by, why did you first decide that you wanted to start speaking about this? You wanted to share your story?
Actually, it was seeing one of his victims on the reel, Geronda Pace, and she's telling her story. And I just remember my whole body started to tremble because I thought, wait a minute, there's no way she can know that. because she said verbatim, all the forms of abuse I have been through with him, she experienced, from having to call him daddy, to when you can go to the restroom, to being slapped in the face and being punished if you broke the rules. And I have not been with this man in almost 15 years. So there's no way. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. There's no way for our stories to be identical and parallel. And we've never met each other. And at that point, I said to myself, I cannot not say anything anymore because no one's listening. So I came forward thinking, well, if I share my story, it will give some validity to these women who are telling their stories and no one is listening. And if we are to be very, very honest, because that's the only way we're going to heal as a people, we have to be honest. Women of color are the last on the totem pole. And if my name was Hannah and I was blonde haired and blue eyed living in the suburbs, he would have gotten one chance. It would not have taken me plus 30 other women and 20 years and all the pain that everyone had to go through. And even coming forward, people still did not want to believe. They said I came forward because I wanted money. I didn't come forward because I got money. There's no price tag on any woman's soul. There's not enough money that you can give any woman to take a black eye. So the fact that even coming forward, still, even in my own community, having people feel like, oh, well, she's lying on him, or why is she coming forward now, or they're all lying. There's no way that all of these women that we've never met each other, do not know each other over more than a decade of time, and we all have the same stories. So that's why I came forward. Like, I just want to be a voice for the voiceless. Lend my mouth, my platform, because what is the point in being a quote unquote celebrity and having a platform if you're not using it to save lives?
Is that still happening to you, Drea? Are people still somehow shaming you, not believing you, despite all the stories that we've heard?
Yes, yes. I was not prepared, and I wish someone would have sat me down and said, okay, Drea, I know your heart's in the right place, but this is what's going to happen. But then part of me is like, I'm happy that they didn't, because maybe I wouldn't have come forward. The victim shaming, the victim blaming, I was shocked. I mean, there are no words for the level of I was just disappointed. I was so disappointed because I'm thinking, what do you all think that I have to gain by coming forward? And as a survivor, they don't understand you're triggered every time you have to tell this story, every time you're interrogated, every time somebody's asking you about it. It's like peeling that scab, and the scar just never fully heals. So I gain absolutely nothing by going back to that dark place. But I also know that it saves lives, so I had to do it. But yes, to this day, I get inbox. I have people telling me, I wish you would have jumped off of that balcony. I have people that have said cruel things like, if I was him, I would have locked you and hog-tied you too. It's the level of hate, the level of disrespect, the level of victim shaming and victim blaming, I was not prepared for. So I fully understand why so many women don't come forward. But over time, it has given me such a thick skin, and it's shown me that there is purpose behind my pain. There's power in my pain, and I can be the power for the powerless, that I will not be stopped. And people who do that now, I just say to them, you're using gasoline to put out a fire, because I'm not going anywhere. As long as I know that there are women out there who have gone through what I've gone through, and they are afraid to even speak because their voice is their power, I will be that voice for the voiceless, and I will not stop.
So just like you're getting those sort of messages in your inbox, are you also getting messages that tell you that you're doing the right thing, that despite everything that is happening, that you are helping women, that it is making a difference, and that perhaps you are helping open their eyes and kind of give them the help that they need to maybe leave their own abusers?
I do. You know, every day, I can say every single day, I get something from a woman somewhere saying, I saw this interview and I'm leaving. Or I had one young lady, and I'll make it really quick. I was actually on Sister Circle when I did come out for the first time. And she said, you know what? I was supposed to be at work today. I called off. My mom came in and said, Drea Kelly's on The View. And my mom knows I love you from Hollywood Exes. And I heard you tell my story. She says, you know, on that day, it was the first day that at that point her abuser had only been mentally and emotionally abusive to her. He was physically abusive. And she said, "You gave me the power to leave." That just blows my mind. From women who have contacted me who said they've been in relationships for 30 years and they saw my story and they left. People who said that I remind them of their sister, or I wish my sister could have met you, or I'm in it right now. Like, and I mean, these are like long paragraphs that people give me in detail from children of abuse. You're like, "Thank you for what you did. I wish my mom would leave, and I'm glad you did it for your daughter." So the positive far outweighs the negative. And again, that's why I say, like, after you go through it and you kind of build that muscle and you know that this is bigger than yourself, and you know that whatever I've been through was not for me, it's just I'm a vessel and my story to tell. My God, yes, I will keep doing it.
I love hearing how happy you sound and how empowered you sound. So tell me, how has sharing your story and what have you learned from it personally?
What I have personally learned from this is, boy, the shame really isn't mine. For a very long time, I carried so much shame because I thought, how weak were you that you would let another human being do that to you? But then I had to give grace to myself and say, but it was a learned behavior. You were taught at a very young age that that's what husbands do to wives. So I'm able now to walk in my own forgiveness. I'm able now to know that whatever somebody asks me, I'm an open book. I don't care what that is. I have no shame behind. There's nothing that you could ever say or do to me that's associated with him and the abuse that I went through that's going to make me feel badly about what my abuser did to me. Like, it's just never, ever going to happen. And if women can grasp that, because the shame, when I say it just has you frozen in fear, you don't want to tell your story because you don't want to look at like you're dumb or you're stupid or you deserved it or what did you do to make that happen? That is amazing. What I've learned about myself is I'm little, but I'm lethal. I am one tough cookie. I did not think that this little brown girl from the south side of Chicago with baby hair and big dreams would ever be on a platform and be able to reach so many women and to change lives just by telling my truth. And now that I've learned that your truth is just that, your truth, I've also learned that I'm not on this war path of let me change everybody's perception. I want everybody to know that it wasn't me. That doesn't even matter. What matters to me now is I want women to look at me and see themselves in me and say, if Drea Kelly did it, I can do it too. If she can do it in front of the world with the whole world watching, I can do it in my little neck of the woods.
Tell us about your kids. What kind of an impact this whole journey, that this experience have on them? Because even though you mentioned that they knew very little about a lot of the abuse that was happening, kids know, right, what is happening sometimes. They have a sixth sense. They see sometimes things that we don't think that they see. So did this impact them negatively in any way, and how are they today?
Well, I have this big smile on my face because when I say my kids are like the best kids ever, like I have the dopest kids in the universe. I love my children. People, if they follow me on social media, they know I always put hashtag my eggs. I absolutely love them. They are amazing. When I say they're just so resilient and so strong, my biggest cheerleaders, they're the ones like, no, mama, you have to tell your story and you're saving lives, because I have those dark moments with my children. And I let them know too, the darkness is a part of the healing. So I don't want them to have this delusion about, oh, mama's okay and she only has good days and it doesn't bother her anymore. I still suffer from PTSD. I have insomnia horribly when I'm triggered. So my children helped me through that. But in the beginnings, it was rough. It was really, really hard. They got picked on a lot. They got bullied a lot through social media. You know, I remember one time my daughter was in school and she came home crying and I asked her why. And she said, well, one of the little girls at the table said, you can't sit with us because your daddy rapes little girls. But I say that's a reality that I don't think any parent is ready for, because how do you explain that to a child? They can't comprehend, like, what are they talking about? So it was really, really hard. It was hard even registering my children for school. The principal actually called me in, and it was like there was no compassion. She just basically came out and said, like, well, is he going to come here because we don't want the children and the other parents to be uncomfortable with a pedophile coming to the school? And I'm thinking, okay, and I have to leave my children with you. So it was very rough in the beginning. It's still hard now, but I think because I've come forward and my children see me walking in my advocacy, it's easier. But unfortunately, you're still going to have people in the world who really don't care, who are very, very negative. And it doesn't matter what you do, they're still going to find something negative in it. So we're to the point now that I've been doing it so long that it kind of comes with the territory, unfortunately. But the ones that I'm supposed to help, it's like the naysayers, I can't even worry about them because there could be a woman out there who's ready to jump off a balcony. And I thank God that every Mother's Day is so special to me that I don't want any children to, my kids could have been the kids that are going to a cemetery to put flowers on a grave every Mother's Day or for my birthday. And it's not. So I know I have to continue to do this work no matter what comes down the pipeline.
Drea, if someone in our audience right now is hearing your story and is relating to any part of it and is perhaps in a very similar situation that you were in years ago, what would you say to them?
I would say take fear with you. Take fear with you. You're going to be afraid, and it's going to be the hardest thing you have ever done in your life, leaving. I actually have a tattoo that says fearless on my arm. And I got it because I know if I feared less, if I feared my abuser less, if I feared going away from him less, I would live a fearless life. I had to take fear with me and use it as my fuel. I had to make it that thing that it was that reminder that I will never end up in a situation like this again. And if I do, for anybody out there who may be left that situation and find yourself in it again, guess what? Now you have the tools to know I won't stay as long this time. Don't be afraid of your voice. Your voice is your power. Keep telling your story. I have a mantra and a quote that I created that's on my social media, and it says there's no time limit on your healing and no expiration date on your story. At the end of the day, I don't care if you were 50 and it happened when you were 15. Tell your story. I don't care if it happened 10 years ago or 50 years ago. Tell your story. Keep telling it until someone will listen, because there's someone out there who's going to help you. There's, like I said, I went online and took the survey to even find out if it was a toxic and abusive relationship, because in my mind, I didn't think it was, because it was normal. That's how I grew up. So even if you don't know, if there's some aspects of your relationship that you're like, I don't know if this is healthy or not, go online, take the survey, look back. Like I said, we're all branch, leaf, fruit, root. Look at your tree. Find out, where is this behavior familiar? Was it my mom? Was it my dad? Did I see someone in my family? Was I exposed to it as a child? So that you have a point of reference to figure out, why is this not abnormal to me? That would be number 2. Number 3, trust yourself. Trust yourself. I often say at the end of the day, I would much rather offer an apology to somebody than to have my family having a eulogy read about me.
So I know you mentioned again how important going online that day and looking up that center, right? Looking up about domestic violence, what it is, what it isn't, and speaking to that woman over the phone, how helpful that was today, was for you the day that you decided that you needed to leave. So why do you think centers like the Marjaree Mason Center are so important? Why do folks need to not only support them, fund them, but also call them when they need them?
Because you don't feel alone. Because of all the isolation, the shame, and the abuse that you're going through, when you know that there's a helping hand, a calming voice, and a loving place, and a safe place that you can go, you feel like you have options. And that's what the abuser does. They make you feel like you don't have any other options outside of them, be it financial, be it for your home, be it transportation. You don't have anyone but them. And to know that you're not alone, that is number 1. Because when you feel supported, you have strength. You're weak when you feel like you're alone. Also, centers like Marjaree Mason Center, being able to just have that outlet was life-changing for me, because I think if I did not have that, I didn't see any other options but death, because I knew either I'm going to die this fast death and end my life today, or I'm going to stay with him and have a slow death for I don't know how many years. And I just could not choose that. And I think that people are afraid because they think in their minds, oh, the shelter is like what you see on TV. You're going to go into this shelter and there's going to be alley cats and smoke in the hallways and you might get robbed in the middle of the night. There really are some great facilities out there for men, women, and children, and to reach out, because I feel like this, what do you have to lose? You have everything to lose if you don't. Your life. And especially when you have children, they need you to break that generational dysfunction. They need you to take that chance. Like when I left my abuser, I had peace about it. And this is one thing I told myself. If something ever happened to me, if he was to kill me right now, at least my children would know my mom died getting away from him. She didn't die and stay.
That's beautiful, Drea. Thank you so much. And one final question. Tell us about Drea Kelly today. What are you doing? What are the plans? What are the goals?
Wow, Drea Kelly today, like I said, I have learned that I am little, but I am lethal. Drea Kelly today, I feel like dance chose me. I've been doing it. It was the first thing I did. My parents said I went from sitting on the floor. I didn't crawl. I just stood up and started dancing. I never thought anything in this world would give me more joy, more happiness, more fulfillment than dance. And then when I came forward and told my story and walking in my advocacy, I found out I was so wrong. This is my life. Like, this is my baby. This is all that I do and I love. I started the 12th Round Foundation. And I called it the 12th Round Foundation because anybody knows anything about boxing, the 12th round, it's like, okay, this is the title round. This is it. So I feel like as women, as survivors, we're fighting for our life. So doing that, and it's, bringing awareness, because I feel like Domestic Violence Awareness Month, it's great that it's recognized in October, but let's not treat it like a holiday. So my initiative is Domestic Violence Awareness 365 and Sex Trafficking Awareness 365. Finishing up my books, I will soon be a published author. I have fashion line. Oh my God, I'm doing reality TV. I've been acting and doing films and dancing and plays. So it's like I wear so many hats, but I tell you, all that I do as far as dance is what I do because it's my happy place and it brings me joy. And that's what I do for Drea. But what I do as an advocate, I do for others. And that fulfills me on a level that I never even thought was possible. And I'm still a hopeless romantic. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I've said it after going through all of that. Because I often say, I was married, but I was never a wife, because that's not how you treat your wife. So I do believe that one day I will be able to say I'm a wife.
Oh, that is wonderful. That is beautiful. Drea, thank you so much. Thank you. I am so happy, genuinely happy to hear that you are doing so well, that you are so happy, both mentally, emotionally, physically, that everything is going so wonderfully for you and your children. We really appreciate that you shared your story with us, and of course, all the work that you do in terms of advocacy for victims or for survivors of domestic violence. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And happy Domestic Violence Awareness Month, even though we're going to do it all year long.
Thank you. And if you haven't donated to this wonderful cause, you can go to mmcenter.org to make a pledge. Or, thanks to sponsor Fresno County EOC, you also have the option to text to give. Text MMC25 for $25 or MMC50 for $50 to 20222. Now, lastly, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and you can help raise awareness by wearing purple on October 22nd. Tag Marjaree Mason Center in your photos and hashtag Post Your Purple. Find out more on MMC's social media sites and on their website. Thank you for your virtual participation this afternoon, supporting the Marjaree Mason Center and our 2020 Top 10 honorees. And thank you again, Drea Kelly. This concludes our program today. Have a great afternoon.
Domestic violence is one of the most pervasive issues in Fresno County, as Fresno ranks #1 among the 10 largest cities in California for domestic violence calls per capita to law enforcement. The Marjaree Mason Center is the only dedicated, comprehensive domestic violence agency in Fresno County, offering 24/7 emergency response, safe housing, and services to adults and their children fleeing for safety. Many arrive at the Marjaree Mason Center with little more than the clothes on their backs. The center provides them with the tools and resources they need to not only survive, but to thrive. Marjaree Mason Center has provided resources in Fresno County for more than 40 years because of the generous support from our community. The needs in our community are great, and we need your support so that we may continue to provide uninterrupted services for those in Fresno County. Please watch this video and consider how you can be a part of our mission to prevent and end domestic violence.
Those living with abuse, home is a dangerous place, a place without hope.
Marjaree Mason Center Hotline, how can we help you?
Marjaree Mason Center provides hope and a new beginning for those fleeing domestic violence. Your generous donations help provide 24/7 crisis support and essential services for over 8,000 adults and children each year. Thank you for your support and for sharing our vision of a community free of domestic violence.
Thank you to presenting sponsor Calviva Health, keynote speaker sponsor Valley Children's Healthcare, diamond sponsor Campos Brothers Farms, honoree sponsor Bank of America, honoree reception sponsor Dutch Bros Coffee, media sponsors ABC 30, The Business Journal, GV Wire, MJR Creative Group, Outfront Media, platinum sponsors Agriland Farming Company Inc., B Sweet Citrus, Community Medical Centers, Deli Delicious, Educational Employees Credit Union, Fresno State, Golden One Credit Union, Johansson Transportation Services, JPL, Moss Adams LLC, Noble Credit Union, Sante Health System, Valleywide Beverage, Zenith Insurance Company, Text to Give sponsor Fresno Economic Opportunities Commission, Gold sponsors Access Plus Capital, Central Valley Community Bank, Central Valley Community Foundation, Chevron, IQ Vision Care, Fresno Clovis Convention and Visitors Bureau, Fresno County District Attorney Lisa Smith-Camp, Fresno Unified School District, the Honorable Glenda C. Allen Hill Black Women Organized for Political Action, Sutton Hague Law Corporation, Union Bank.
When we talk about being a local partner, Calviva Health really cares about the community we live in. They provide more than just access to quality, low-cost health care.
Calviva Health supports local organizations like us, providing resources that are crucial to the community.
They're a vital partner to our organization.
Investing in the communities that we live in means everyone benefits. That's why there's Calviva Health.
Your local partner, Calviva Health. See if you qualify.